And you also have to understand, Dara is going to see this differently from us. We see this from when this is no longer financially viable to do. Self-driving cars can replace 20% of us and decrease the pricing algorithm to the point where it's no longer financially feasible for us to drive. That's what matters. If Waymo dropped 100 cars in my city overnight, that is something to worry about.
For the next 10 years, you are going to have hybrid networks of humans and machines. But you fast forward 15, 20 years, I think that the autonomous driver is going to be a better driver than a human driver.
This one kind of made me upset, and not for the reason you think it will be. This one says, Uber CEO says drivers have about 10 years left before they will be replaced. I haven't read this article. So what I like to do is I like to give my viewpoint sometimes before I actually read the article. And I think that the most important thing I can say to counter what's probably going to be said is I don't believe that the worst thing that can happen to rideshare drivers is being replaced. I believe the worst thing that can happen to rideshare drivers is not being able to make enough money to where it just isn't worth it anymore. And anytime I have a conversation with other drivers, especially drivers who I think are very, very intelligent, even the owner of the rideshare guy, it's not Sergio, even the owner, I've had a small back and forth with him, and I'll show you, it was on Twitter. They believe that drivers don't have anything to worry about for a while. Here, Uber is saying it's 10 years. I don't agree with that in full. I think that drivers in cities where self-driving cars exist have something to worry about today. They like to say that, oh, Uber does a bajillion rides worldwide every year. I'm like, that's fine. Drivers worldwide probably don't have to worry about it to the degree that drivers have to worry about it in cities where it's available. And we'll touch on some of those cities very soon, but we know two of them already. We know one of them is LA and the other is Phoenix. Even when I look at my YouTube stats and I look at the breakdown of where people are watching from, majority they are from LA. So when I'm making content, I'm talking to people, and the rideshare guy, their roots are in California. So I'm assuming most of their people are from California too. You're telling people who live in California, who have traditionally complained that it's already oversaturated, that they have nothing to worry about when it comes to self-driving cars. When self-driving cars are like, all right, we'll stop there because some of these articles are already going to co-sign what I'm saying. And let's just dive in. Let's just dive into what the articles are going to say. Rideshare driving was the most searched side hustle last year, garnering nearly 31,000 monthly Google searches per Creative Fabrica study. More than 7 million people drive or deliver with Uber alone every month. However, Dara said in an interview on Friday that driving for Uber is only a safe gig for the next decade. Disagree with that. After that, autonomous vehicles or cars that drive themselves will take over the same routes humans drive every day. So I can see that. So I want to specifically point out this nuance here. He's talking about when being a driver will no longer be necessary, period. And you also have to understand that Dara is going to see this differently from us. We see this from when this is no longer financially viable to do. That will happen long before we are totally replaced by self-driving cars. You see the nuance and the difference? For us to be 100% replaced might happen in 10 years. I can see that. I can kind of agree with that time frame. But self-driving cars can replace 20% of us and decrease the pricing algorithm to the point where it's no longer financially feasible for us to drive. That's what matters. How much will self-driving cars impact our ability to earn? That's what matters. It's not about being replaced. It's about when is this no longer financially economical for us. Take self-driving cars out the picture for a second. We already had markets complaining that it's oversaturated. Waymo's planning to drop 100 cars in a particular city. We'll talk more about it later. If Waymo dropped 100 cars in my city overnight, that is something to worry about. We're talking about cars that will drive almost 24/7. I would rather 100 human drivers be dropped in my city than 100 self-driving cars. And Uber has already said that in Phoenix, on the Uber app, when a passenger is offered a self-driving car, the Waymo, or a human, 50% of the time they're picking the Waymo. I'm not making that up. Waymo gets picked 50%. Uber CEO. So it says half of Uber's riders say no to self-driving cars, highlighting trust issues. This article is framed in a weird way, but half agreeing is the same as half disagreeing, which is huge. So this is a direct quote. The most important factor is, can we make this technology safe? Can we build trust for riders, for example, in markets where we offer autonomous vehicles? Half of our riders say no, thank you. And this was in an interview with Bloomberg. Half isn't small. Half of the people who are being shown a self-driving option versus a human option, half are picking humans and half are picking self-driving. So like I said earlier, it's not about being replaced. It's about losing out on profits, about it not being worth it anymore. We know that surges, bonuses, and things of that nature is largely like created based off of demand. And if self-driving cars can lower demand to a point where surges don't have to happen as frequently, it might not be worth driving Uber and Lyft. Maybe on special holidays where it's super busy, it might be. But day to day, which is when we need to make money as well, it's going to make it more of a part-time gig than a full-time gig. So I largely disagree with a lot of people out there that aren't worried about Uber and Lyft. Well, about self-driving cars in Uber and Lyft. And part of that is because it takes a long time to transition from one thing to another. It could take 2 to 4 years to get a degree for a job that's going to pay you better than what you're making now. And with people out there like pacifying people, saying that they don't have to worry now, it doesn't make sense. Sometimes it'll be some of my rideshare friends who, they have Teslas. They'll sing praises about full self-driving and how the car can drive itself. When you talk about self-driving cars with rideshare, it's like, oh no, that's dog water. It's going to be very, very bad. It just doesn't line up. It's like the technologies you believe so much in, it's like once we put it in this area where it's up against your current career field, you don't believe it. And that's dangerous because automation comes for all of us. It happens in different waves to different things in different times. And I believe that 10 years, if you wait 10 years before you pivot to something else, you would have screwed yourself over. Even if you want to be a long-term driver, you need to make sure you're in a position to that when it's no longer like viable for you to drive, you can switch. That's what I'm doing, kind of. I don't want to be a long-term driver. I want to be a full-time YouTuber. And so I've been using Uber and Lyft to pay off my debts. If I keep at it, nothing crazy happens, I should be debt-free, not including the house, by the summer. I'll have no student loans. I have 2 cars in my household, currently no car payments. We don't use credit cards. And if driving no longer becomes worth it, I will have the financial flexibility to do something else, especially if I have the emergency fund, which we're not at that step. We have some money, but we don't have the dedicated emergency fund yet because all of our extra money goes towards paying off debt. But once that's gone, we build up the emergency fund. Once I have that, like I can go and work. If times get really hard, I used to be a Pizza Hut store manager. I can go and be a Pizza Hut store manager for $50,000, $60,000 a year and take care of my family because we did the math. We only need about $2,500 to survive. And that's gas, electricity, that's all of that. That's us existing in not lavishly, but in like minimalist, comfortable. That's where we exist now. And what is that? Let's call it $3,000, multiply that by 12 months in a year. That's $36,000 a year. I can, after tax, I can do Pizza Hut store manager and be okay. That's not what I want. No, but what I'm suggesting is that you out there as a driver, you should start adopting this mentality that today is the best day to make money with Uber and Lyft because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And that's kind of the mentality I try to go on with. I'm not perfect with it. Sometimes I slack off more than I should, but I'm racing to get to the point where I can cruise. And a lot of people are just cruising. And then when something happens, they're having to race against their wishes. They're not able to take breaks. They're not able to slow down. So that's really what my channel is about. So if you're new here, it's the first time you heard what my channel is about, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like this video too. And let's get back to the articles. So Dara is saying you fast forward 15, 20 years, I think the autonomous driver is going to be a better driver than the human driver. I agree with that. Dara said they will have trained autonomous cars on lifetimes of driving that no one person can. They're not going to be distracted. They'll probably always have some issues, but they're currently safer than human drivers. Currently. All right, so apparently we have a video clip. Let's check it out. Let's see what he's saying. Let's see what the snake is saying.
For the next 10 years, you are going to have hybrid networks of humans and machines. But, you fast forward 15, 20 years, I think that the autonomous driver is going to be a better driver than a human driver. The human displacement here, while it's not something that is going to happen tomorrow, is going to happen eventually.
So here are my issues now. This whole entire article is written in a way that makes anyone who just reads the headline, we'll go back to it, think that he's saying that you have 10 years before it's not worth doing anymore. And after listening to what he has actually said, he literally said that over the next 10 years, we'll be experiencing the hybrid model. So that coincides with what I said about where there's going to be a point where the hybrid model is going to cause drivers not to make as much money as they used to make because the self-driving cars are there. I don't feel like that's an unreasonable take. It feels very reasonable to say that. And he's saying that after 10 years, there won't be a need for humans, period. And as rideshare drivers, we are going to feel the burn financially before that 10 years is up. As the expansion of self-driving cars happens and they cut into the dollars that we make, we are going to feel that before the 10 years. I think long before the 10 years. So I got to do a better job of, instead of reading people's opinions about what's happening, I got to do a better job of going to the opinion source myself and making a determination. Because the tone of this article is significantly different from what he just said. From a business perspective, I think that's fine. It's unfortunate that they want to wipe out drivers. But if I'm a CEO in his position, it feels like that's where the market is going. I understand it. Like, I'm not oblivious to the fact that Uber is a company and they're going to look out for themselves. As a driver, it's unfortunate. And, we'll have to do our best to deal with it. But we've seen this happen in different industries. It's just that driving is so hard to automate that's taken so long. But we've seen the automation of other industries already. You just have to learn to adapt. It's unfortunate. I'm not praising Uber for it. It's I understand that that's what they want to do. But as he said, he is trying to give us more opportunities to earn. It's just that delivering people is where the money's at. It's better than delivering food on most days, most cases, most cities. And these other opportunities he's probably adding, it's just not going to pay the same. So even if he's able to increase more things that people can do, I guess eventually what's going to happen is the introduction of automation is going to cause a price reduction or pay reduction for delivering people to the point where it's about equal to delivering food until they figure out how to get automation to deliver food in a way that's similar to how they have automation delivering people. So it's just what we have to watch out for. And I'm getting frustrated that people aren't preparing for this. If you take out a car loan, let's see what the average car loan is. Average car loan, not even in amount, average car loan in years. So the average car loan term is 68 months. I'm not doing math in my head. 68 divided by 12. So that's 5.6 years. We'll just call it 5.5 years. If someone goes out and gets a new car, which you shouldn't do, and they take a loan out for that car, which you shouldn't do, and they're going to use it for Uber and Lyft, which you shouldn't do, they have that car payment for 5.5 years. 5.5 years. The average car payment is $700. 5.5 years. If you think Uber and Lyft will be paying enough in 5.5 years for $700 car payment, you go ahead and listen to these people that think self-driving cars aren't a problem. One of those companies just announced that they're expanding to 10 other cities. Let's talk about that one now.